There's record. Okay, we are now recording. I hope y'all don't mind my footwear. I need to be comfortable to do this. All right. Good evening.
Good evening.
And welcome to Cuba. Well, not really, but what I hope to do tonight is to introduce you to our sister church in Cuba and help you get to know the people a little bit. I'll share some of my experiences, and then at the very end, you'll see some of what you've already made a difference for these people. I need to tell you ahead of time, I'm very, very passionate about this. So every now and then, if I go off into some emotional thing, just ignore that part. And hopefully he can edit it out of the recording. Hi there.
Hi there.
Okay. So the name of the church is Iglesia Metodista de Guatao, which means the Methodist Church in Guatao. So I pretend like I can speak Spanish, but I can say the words really well. I don't know what they all mean, but I can say them. When you compare Cuba to Tennessee, Cuba's actually a little bit longer, but not nearly as wide. So probably similar square footage in the two countries. But oh my goodness, a world of difference in what they really are. The first thing I want to share before I get into any details is a video that when I came back from Cuba, the family there had made for me, and they gave me this recording when I left there. So this is their version of my trip to Cuba. And I'll try to tell you what all the words say. That one says, Patsy visits Cuba. That's the family. A service of praise to God on Sunday. And I got there on a Saturday, and this was Sunday. And that's the pastor in the middle. We will never forget, is what the top says. Thank you. Some of it's kind of embarrassing. Sunday school. Gifts from the women of the church. She gave this. Night of Jubilee with the church at the castle.
That's their limo.
word of God through the proclaimer.
What year did you go, Patsy?
2010. No, she's not a tourist.
Existe un lugar de mi alma que solo tú
This was a trip to Havana, by the way. I missed that one.
Y siento una sed que solo en tu fuente hoy podría saciar.
Gertrude.
Sería imposible continuar sin la ayuda de tu mano, porque tú guías mis pasos, Señor. ¿Cómo negar tu gran poder si cada día puedo ver que eres tú
This
quien
is
me
a service,
abre en la
it's the
oscuridad?
youth service.
Y así
Praise and adoration on Thursday.
eres tú el que divide dos el mar. Firme yo puedo cruzar, ya no temo porque tú me guiarás y nada me faltará. Te quiero dar mi adoración sin nada que ocultar. Cuando oro a ti, Señor, me alegro porque sé que prestas atención, porque tú eres tan real.
Okay, that was their version of my trip. It was actually extremely interesting. Cuba is a communist country. At the time, the borders were still closed to Americans, but the state of Florida has a relationship with Cuba. The people of the churches of Florida are allowed to help people of the churches in Cuba. That was a way for them to get food and supplies and stuff and not have to pay for it themselves. In return, we're allowed to visit 5 people a year from whatever church could come, and that's it. And I was very blessed to be able to go one year. I was the only person from my church that went that year. We had the pastor and his wife went 2 years before I did. But anyway, and in Cuba, you don't get to choose what your occupation is. You are told what your occupation is, based on, I guess, how you did in school. I don't know how they base it. But Raphael, the pastor of the church, was a physician. He went to medical school. He practiced for many years at a hospital in Santiago. Is that down by Guantanamo? Okay, let's talk about Cuba. If you don't know where Cuba is there anyone who doesn't know where Cuba is? Okay, good. There's Cuba. Cuba has 16 provinces. They're not called states, they're called provinces. Santiago is way down here at the south corner, and that's where Raphael is from. And he was working in a hospital there as a doctor, as a physician. And I don't know who, but some of his patients were Christians. And after several years of people talking to him, he came to the Lord and became a Christian and was told, you have a choice. You could be a doctor and renounce this, or you can be a Christian and we'll find something else for you to do. He is no longer a doctor. He chose the ministry. So they sent him to live in Guatao. If he's going to be a pastor, he's going to live in Guatao. And the salary went from approximately $200 a month to $5 a month. And that's what they live on. Now, they don't have to buy their house. It's owned by the government. They don't have to buy necessities. They get, I think it's 1 roll of toilet paper per week per person. They get 5 pounds of flour, 5 pounds of sugar, 10 pounds of beans. They get some basic supplies on a monthly or weekly basis. There's a woman in each town, or a man. There's a person in each town whose job is to bake bread. And in Guatao, it's this sweet little lady who goes around on a bicycle with this big basket in front, and she has all these loaves of bread. They're about this long and about that big around, and each household is allowed 1 loaf a day. And she, every morning, she goes up and down the streets, there aren't that many, you'll see, on her bicycle, and everybody comes out and gets their loaf of bread, and that's her job. But anyway, so Havana's up here. Southwest of Havana is this little tiny town, kind of like we are to Knoxville. It's 25, 30, 35, I don't know, miles out of Havana, and that's where Guatao is. It is a small town. If you look at it from satellite view, this is the whole town right here. There's Guatao. The next biggest town, Punta Brava, is about 6 miles away, so that distance is 6 miles. Punta Brava has a store that is open twice a week. And if you have cash money, you can go buy whatever they have at the store. This week they might have socks and green beans. You never know what they're going to have at the store. They often have fresh produce, because any farmers that harvested more than what they had to give out for their, like if she cooked more bread today than we needed, she might take the bread up there and get 10 cents for a loaf. So there is a store up in Punta Brava if you have money to buy things with, and it depends on what's available. If you go even closer, you can see how small the town is. It's very much like New Tazewell. There's the main road, and it is paved. None of the rest are. And there's a couple of side roads, one major side road, and the church, why am I pointing? The church is right there. So it's as close to the center of town as they could make it. That's an aerial view of the church of El Guatao. The front of it, this is their whole entire yard. And in fact, you're going to find out that's not even there anymore. But this is in the front yard. When we went down in 2010, they wanted to build another building to have a room. When I showed you the Sunday school, that's their living room. The only bathroom in the building is in their house. So anybody in the church had to go into their private home to do things. So our church would send cement blocks when they were available. Sometimes we could get 2 cents. Sometimes we could get as many as 10 or 12 cents. So it took us about 3 years to send bricks to Cuba, and they finally, after 3 years, got enough to build a building. And they started on top of the building they live in and went on out into this grassy area and created a second building for the church. Now underneath is still open for parking and to have somewhere to walk. But the Sunday school room and another bathroom are upstairs in this other building. And that was, they were so excited about it. This is the front of the church from the road. And here's an outline of their home. This is how they live. The master bedroom is where Raphael and Naomi are. The second bedroom is where their children, both of them, lived. They have a double bed. They had 2 twin beds. The living room is right outside of that, and that has an outside door. The road in front of the church is over here. So you'd have to walk through here to get to the living room. And then there's an entrance to a hallway, And there's the kitchen, and then the bathroom is down at the end. That's it, that's what they lived in. It had about 600 square feet, and that's their home. It's been for 30, 40 years, I don't know. And then on the other side of the cement wall from the hallway is the church. Now you do have to go out the living room door and into the door of the church, but this is the actual sanctuary building. The front of the church is up there, so the pews are here, and you face that way. Once we set the cement blocks, and when I say they, I'm talking about the people of the church, the men and women in the church, built the cement block building themselves. It's now there. So that's the only uncovered area in their whole building. That's what it looks like. And they are so proud of it. They are so proud of their building. She actually put up a place to hang her laundry, her drying line. She goes up to the roof and hangs her laundry to dry on top of the roof. But that is the Church of El Guatao right there. This is in the bedroom. They gave up their bedroom to me when I was there, and Naomi and Raphael slept in the pews in the church. And the reason they did that, any of you that have ever seen me in the church, it's the only room with an air conditioner. They were actually considered rich because they had an air conditioner in the bedroom. So that's where I stayed. This is their living room. And again, this is where Sunday school was held. But that's the full size of their living room. That's it. That's their living room. Yeah. The person taking the picture is standing in the front door, taking the picture. And then here's inside the church. So you see, it's got about 6 pews and 2 doors in the back. And again, they are so proud of it. They are so proud. This is our church. This is where we worship God. And they love it. All right. Raphael is the pastor. Noemi is his wife. And she is also a pastor in women's ministries in Cuba. She's actually been, the Methodist Church had her go to 3 different places over the past 3 or 4 summers and do workshops in Methodist churches across Cuba for the women. She's very strong in her faith, and she's also a leader. Gertrudis is their oldest. She's, when I was there, she was 20, so I guess she's 31 now. And Raphaeline was 18 at the time. His name is also Raphael, but you know, Raphael, so they call him Raphaeline, which means little Raphael, right? Yeah, thought so. At the end, you'll see that Raphael and Gertrudis are both married now, and Raphaeline actually has a child, so things have moved on. And this was me and my voice, Mario. They did get a interpreter, which is different from a translator, because he knew English well enough that when I'd say, oh, yeah, right, he knew I didn't mean right. You know, he knew most of the euphemisms that we use. And if he didn't know, he asked me, and I would clarify it for him. But he was a wonderful interpreter and was with me the whole time. He'd go home at night and then come back the next morning. He lived in Punta Brava, thank you. Punta Gordas in Florida. Sorry. This is the street in front of the church, and you see it's not really paved. It's very hard mud. What are you saying about Punta Gordas?
No, I said Florida's in Cuba too.
Well, that's true.
If you looked at the map, Florida was in Cuba.
I agree.
Santiago's in Chile.
Yep.
Got it.
This is what the streets that aren't the main street look like. So they're kind of muddy when it rains, and there aren't a lot of trees and grass. But that's what life is like there. Here's a side road, or maybe this is part of the main road. This might be the main road. Yeah, that's wide. And these are some of the houses. The house you're allowed to live in depends on your political status. If you have a high job of power, you are given a nice house. If you're the lady who makes the bread, or the man who raises the corn, or whatever the jobs are, the man who sweeps, the man who drives the taxi, then you You don't live in a really nice place. We'll see that in a minute. This is another mode of transportation in Cuba. I didn't get to ride on one, but I saw 3 or 4 of them. And this is also in the main road going right through the middle of Guatao. So, if you want to go to Havana, like we want to go to Knoxville for something, and you don't do it often, 2-3 times a year, maybe, if you can get there. To get there, remember it's 6 miles up to the main road, and then you got to get on the main road to Havana. So what you do is you find transportation from Guatao to Punta Brava, and then in Punta Brava they do have buses, so you can ride a bus. But from Guatao you can walk. Some people have bicycles or scooters if they're very fortunate. And a lot of people have this BC taxi. And there's a man whose job it is in Guatao to drive around in his taxi all day and take people back and forth where they need to go. And he and I became very good friends. His name was Ramon. His name is Ramon. And as we drive around and they'd show me things, I'd talk and listen to people talking. And he heard me say, the first night we were there, the grandmother moved in with us while we were there, and she did the cooking. And she made plátanos, which are fried bananas. Oh my goodness, they were good. And I loved them, And the next day, Ramon showed up that morning with that.
Oh.
And I had bananas all week long. Now, that was probably the allotment of bananas for 10 people in the church. And they told them to give them to me because they heard that I like it. Yeah. Okay, anyway. So here we are on our way up to Punta Brava. But that's Ramon. He's a sweet guy. Okay. The administrative board chairman, like John is in our church, was a city official, so he was politically connected. That's his home. It's an apartment on the 2nd floor. We had a meeting there one day, a praise meeting, and inside, the walls are nicely painted. He's got a few pictures up. It's got a big window. Behind there is a kitchen. Behind the person taking a picture were 1 or 2 bedrooms and a bathroom. Not big at all, but decent, clean, well kept. There was a carpet on the floor. That was the meeting at the administrative board's house. We also went to a meeting at one of the other parishioners' house. I don't even know what he does. And this is his house. The walls are open cement. They hang carpets or anything they have that's pretty, they'll hang on the wall for decoration. It had 2 rooms. The front room, and that's where we are, has a bed, 4 chairs, a bench. And the back room had a bed, not a oven, but a little stove top cooker thing with 2 burners on it, and the toilet. And that's what they lived in. Now, while we were there, they were all excited about this thing called the Proclaimer. Raphael had just gotten one of these for our church from the Cuban Methodist Church. And it's called a Proclaimer. And what it was is it's like a CD player, but you can't change the music or anything. It's the Bible recorded in Spanish, obviously, recorded for the people. And that's what it looks like. And he took this around with him when he visited each home. The pastor would take this around with him, and they'd sit there and listen to the Bible.
Porque si perdonáis a los hombres sus ofensas, os perdonará también a vosotros vuestro Padre Celestial. Pero si no perdonáis sus ofensas a los hombres.
And the people were absolutely fascinated. They loved listening to it. No TVs, a lot of them had no radio, so this was something to do. Okay.
Did it run off of electricity? Was it
Batteries.
plugging it? It was
Batteries. And that's a lot of what we brought down with us, was like 20 packages of batteries.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Then we went to the children's home. The Methodist Children's Home will take any child who needs them. Some have no parents and they're orphans. Some have parents, but the parents can't afford to keep them. So they give them to the children's home and let them raise them. And I thought it was Cross of Peter, but it's actually Cross of the Rock. But Peter, the Rock, hello. So I guess we're both right. But this is at the children's home. The woman up there in brown, her name is Elvis. I love that. And when I left, and I left all my clothes there, Elvis got my clothes, which is great. I love that. But these are the children. And if I look anymore, I'm going to cry. I was there. They came to the church the first night, of course, because they're in our church. And then we went out there. And at first, they sat away from me, which is fine, because they're children and they don't know me and I look funny. And I played games with them and sang a few songs. And by the time we were done, they were climbing all over me. Very, very special people, open to any kind of love they can possibly get. And the church in Guatao supports them as much as they can. So that's the children's home. Okay, you might have seen this in that video. I got to tell you about this. One night they wanted to go on a field trip with the church. And they took us up to this castle that's outside of Cuba. You may have seen it in pictures. Oh, it's on the next one. But they wanted to go there. It's near the beach and it's got soldiers. It's like, well, I guess they don't know St. Augustine today.
It's the Williamsburg of...
Thank you. It's like a Williamsburg type thing. I was going to say St. Augustine. This truck was left over from the war days. And I don't know who in our church drives that truck. He's a delivery guy, truck driver. But it is where soldiers would be taken all over Cuba. It is where prisoners of war would be shoved in the back and taken to prisons. Now, that whole church climbed in the back, and we went on an hour-and-a-half drive to get to this castle just for fun. And then I was a little upset. They wouldn't let me ride them back. They said, oh, you're the honored guest, you sit up front. So I sat up front, but on the way back, I sat in the back. And they were singing and praising and just having the best time. And there were benches, one on each side, and that was it. So a lot of people were holding on or sitting on the floor. And that was just perfectly fine. No problem. That was a treat for them. That's the picture. If you've ever seen that from Cuba, that's where we went. If you ever see any Cuba pictures, you'll see that. It's like real famous. So there we were on this trip to this castle. That's a picture from across, that's standing there looking that way. So that's Havana at night from the castle. And there's all my friends again. Okay. I was set down there for a ministry. And I felt like, what can I possibly offer these people? They know so much more about living a Christian, godlike life than I ever will. So the only thing I could do was music. So I practiced with them a little bit and gave them some ideas. And we brought, one of the things we brought from our church was 120 recorders, those little flute things. And you saw the people playing it. Taught a bunch of them how to play recorder, and they were so excited. And Raphael has about as much musical skill as an earthworm, but that's okay. He could blow in it and make a noise. And I told my voice, Mario, I told him, make a joyful noise to the Lord, and he just laughed. This was the youth service, and this young man, I still haven't found out what ever has happened to him. He lived at the children's home when I was there, and I would say he was 11 or 12, so he's 22 now. I don't know what he's doing. But at this time, not only could he read and read from the Bible, but then he would close it and talk about it. 11-year-old boy. He was amazing. And Mario and I would be sitting over in a corner, and the kid is just talking away, and he's telling me all that this kid is saying. And I'm like, you're making this up. And he, no, that's what he's saying. He was amazing. God was very much in this child, and I hope he still is. But yes, that's me dancing down there at the bottom. They're very outgoing in their praise. A lot of yelling, a lot of hand raising, a lot of movement, a lot of music. It was fabulous. It was just amazing. Okay, so who's this? Raphaeline. Raphael. Noemi. Gertrudis. This is Mimi. Now Mimi is Noemi's mother, and her name is Noemi. They do that a lot down there. So we called her Mimi because she's the grandmother. But Mimi, I found out later, was also sleeping on a pew in the church while I was there. She came down to help keep the house so that Noemi and Raphael could go around with me to do things. So that was her ministry and her gift. And she got all my shoes when I left. She and I have the same size feet, so she got these tennis shoes. You'd have thought I gave her gold. She was just, you can't give me these, you can't give me these. You know, they were from Walmart or something, I don't know, maybe JCPenney's, I don't know. So here I am playing recorder with them, and Mario played guitar too. They had a meeting of the women, and they all brought gifts to me. They gave me gifts. This is very, very precious to me. It's from one of the women. There are some, if you want to pass them around, there's some castanets, and there's a little glass thing there. None of them are worth more than $5. That's a monthly salary for them, if they get a salary. And they're giving me these dried flowers and little clay things, and I had to leave a lot of them there because I didn't have anywhere to put them. But they gave me gifts. I don't know what to say to that. I don't know what to say. And they were all so full of love. We danced to that one too. You might notice I wore the same dress all the time. We were told that most people have one set of good clothes, if they have a set. And every time that church door is open, they'll be wearing those same clothes. So I only brought one dress down, and every time the church was open, I wore the same dress. Otherwise, t-shirts, jeans, if it was available, they have stuff like that. And a lot of them came from people like us. All right, so then they took us to Havana. Now this was just the family that went down, and Mario, of course, I can't go without my voice. But we went to Havana. Ramon drove us on the BC taxi, and another guy who has a car. Well, actually, here's a little piece of trivia. Raphael had a car. There was a car in the parking lot when I got there. He hasn't had gas in 5 years. So about 2 years after I left, he got rid of the car because there's no gas there to put in it. So he couldn't use it. But anyway, somebody else had a car, and they drove us up to Punta Brava. And then we got the bus up into Havana. And these are just a few sites around Havana. They call that a banana taxi. That's what they look like because, you know, the other one is so long that this one's much shorter in the city. But that's just a few scenes around Havana. And that's what you'll see from the tourists. Oh, come to Cuba. And they think everything looks like that. And that was 10 years ago, so I don't know what it looks like now. We went to a restaurant. It was the third time that Gertrudis and Raphaeline had ever been to a restaurant. She was 20, he was 18, and this was their third time in a restaurant. They knew what it was. As far as protocol, Noemi brought bottles of water in her bag because she wasn't sure that they'd have drinks for them. So they brought water into the restaurant and pulled it out like that or like that and had their own water on the restaurant. So I told them all, this was something that our church paid for, was a night on the town with them. So I was paying. So we got everybody Coca-Cola. Oh, Coca-Cola. Whoa, they were so excited. And the hit of the night was the fish that Mario ordered. He ordered a red snapper. They gave him a red snapper. Can you see it? It's whole. It's cooked, but it's, we were all like, okay. And then the night before I left, they made me another cake, and this time it was chocolate, and they put some chocolate on top. And I kind of got tickled from the shape of it. If any of you have ever been on the internet and you know what the little chocolate triangle thing represents, and I started laughing, and Mario didn't want to tell them why. If you don't know, on the internet, on websites, that little shape right there, the brown in the middle of the cake, is a little representation of poop, poop, poop.
If you type poop, that's what comes up, the icon.
And how do we know this?
Must be a vet thing. And then,
Well said.
and there was the final service before we left. And here are just some people from the church. I would say some of these are very dear to me. Every single face up there is very dear to me. Very dear. I became part of their family the minute I walked in that church. They just are so accepting and so loving and so giving. And there's nothing I could have done for them. Here I go again. More than what they did for me. And he was a trip. That's a whole nother story. Anyway, those are some very special faces. A lot of their services have dance to praise, and it's wonderful. When I was there 10 years ago, Gertrudis and her best friend were dancing. This was taken last week. In fact, you can see the masks on some of the kids. And they're still dancing. So their church is still very much alive and active and trying everything they can to keep things going. There's me and Mimi. She cut my hair while I was down there. I was FaceTiming them last week, and they looked at me and they said, "You need to come down here and see Mimi again." Yeah, I know. When I left, everybody wanted to there's the church, get around me, and put their hands on me and pray. So this is who we're sister church with now. And it's very important that you know these people. This is the family. Gertrudis is now married to Ezekiel. I keep saying Ezekiel, but in Cuba it's Ezekiel. In fact, that's their wedding picture. Raphaeline married Ladis, who's, oh my God, she's beautiful. She's the most beautiful girl I've ever met. And she has a heart as pure and full of God as anyone you'd ever know. And Karen is the grandchild, so you know she's going to be front and center. And that was Valentine's Day last year. And then here's a picture of Mimi recently. She got all made up for that. Bless her heart. And here, behind Raphael, he's up on the roof of the cement building, and you can see the laundry hanging out there, the bedspreads. So yeah, that's our family. That's your family. They pray for us. They pray for you. They get a picture of the church. It's fascinating. And they don't know anybody's name, of course, but they look at each name and pray for that person and that person's family. So you have been prayed for, because they go on our Facebook page. These are pictures over the past 2 months of stuff you have sent to this family and this church. Each picture represents anywhere between $80 and $200 worth of stuff. And this is what we've been doing, is sending things to them. They eat the stuff themselves, but they also share it with the people in the church. And everybody in that church has what they need because we're sharing what we have with them. So that was Raphael's telling me to tell you guys, thank you so much. This is perfect. We need this. So that's to you. That's Raphael. This is on the front of the church. And I wanted you to know what it said, and I can't do it. Will you read it for me, Judy?
It's the Methodist church named Fred Hetledge, a gift of love from Fred Hetledge and his wife and other Americans and Cubans, dedicated February 5th, 1958, Guatao. Christ loved us and gave himself for us.
What more can you say? Does anyone have questions?
Tell them about the rations, like the coffee that they gave you and stuff like that.
Like I said, the rations, each family is only allowed so much. And so all week long we would have all this food. The cakes, I had a cake when I came, the one that said welcome Patsy, and a cake when I left, the one with the little chocolate poo on it. They don't get that much sugar. The people of the church gave them sugar to make a cake for me. Ramon gave bananas from the people of the church so I could have fried bananas because I made the mistake of saying, oh, I really like those. Those were so good. Every meal I had them. Coffee, in fact, I got a text from them this morning. Sorry, I've been standing up too long.
Sit down.
Well, I'm recording this. I'll lean. This morning I got a text. Now they haven't got the last one I sent. Oh, crud. Help! Judy's not fluent, but she knows a whole lot more Spanish than I do. But one of the things, and I usually have to copy the whole thing, go to Google Translate, put it in, and then read what it said. But one of the things they need is coffee.
When you can, buy some coffee, detergent to wash the,
There should be a comma there, toilet paper.
yeah,
There was no comma, it says detergent for toilet paper.
detergent to wash, and then toilet paper, and antibacterial stuff for the hands, and some refreshments when you can. Many liquids, they need a lot of liquids to drink.
Okay. I did send apple juice one time, but I'll send more drinks.
Yeah.
They get like a pound of coffee a week per house. A week? A month. Might be a month. A pound of coffee a month. Now, they drink this stuff. I was not a coffee drinker. I didn't drink coffee until I was in my 50s. But anyway, and at the time I went down, I was not a coffee drinker. And they all had coffee. That was a thing. That's what you do. One of the gifts I got was a little wall hanging with 2 tiny little coffee cups. And I thought, oh, how cute. Well, that's what they drink from. And I thought, well, wow, they don't have coffee because that's as big as it is. No, that's not why. You know, you ever heard of espresso? Well, Cuba was way beyond that. It was very thick. I thought it was syrup. Literally, I thought it was
Like
syrup.
doing shots.
Oh, and they made me drink it once. They had a good time with that one. Oh my goodness. But the people of the church gave them coffee so we'd have enough for me that week. They're just so, they hear what the Bible says, they believe it, and they do it. There you go. They hear what the Bible says, they believe it, and they do it. Lawrence, if you're watching this, there's your sermon for next week. They hear the Word of God, they believe it, and they do it. And if we can help them, they are so appreciative and so loving, and they give back what they can through prayer, through praise. And thank you for agreeing to partner with us, with them. See, that's my other family. Yes, ma'am.
When you send something to them, do you have a list of things you can send or you can't send? I mean, does the government go through everything you ship them?
So far, and I've sent things 6 times, 7 times now, so far they've gotten most of what I've ordered, which is a good thing. United States cannot send stuff to Cuba. We are still, that is banned. They are still, whatever the word is.
Embargo.
So, embargo, there you go. So, there are companies in Mexico, which I never could figure out the language, so I didn't go there, and Canada, who have internet links with stores in Havana and in each of the major cities, but of course we go through Havana. And the stores, because of COVID, this is a good thing about COVID, believe it or not, because of COVID, the stores are now delivering to anything within the region. And fortunately, they are close enough that they will deliver to some of the stores will deliver to Guatao. So what I have to do is go on to this internet site for these Canadian stores who have links to the stores in Cuba, and I have to see what's available. Last week, for the first time, and I guess they haven't gotten it yet, I think I said this in church, I was able to get hand soap and shampoo and deodorant, all these toiletries that they haven't had, and I ordered as much as I possibly could. Now you're limited. I wanted to order 10 bars of soap. The most you can order is 6. So I said 6 of 3 different kinds. There's ways around it, you know. But I want to send them coffee. Well, none of the stores had coffee. Not a one. None of the stores had toilet paper this week. I sent them toilet paper the very first time back in July. I think they might have run out since they shared with the whole church. So I will send more of that. But it depends on what's available in the stores as to what you can send. And I get off work about 4:30, 5 o'clock, so I'm not home till 5:30 or 6. Sometimes by the time I get there and I go into these stores, they've already reached the limit of how many they're allowed to sell that day. And I get this thing that says, sorry, we can't sell anything else today. So
the store that you're looking at to order is actually in Havana.
yes,
Okay, but you're going through the Canadian.
through Canada, through a Canadian website. And I pay everything in Canadian dollars.
Okay.
So the money goes to Canada, gets converted to Canadian money, which then goes to Cuba and gets converted into Cuban, they're not pesos, whatever, Cuban money. And that's how it gets paid for at the store. And there are actually 2 or 3 different websites, and some of the stores are on both, but some of the stores are only on this one or only on this one. I can order them a queen size bed. I can order them car tires. And
But not gasoline.
no gasoline. And I can order them a crock pot, which they already have.
Okay.
So it all depends on what's available in the store that day. You never know.
So you're really limited you're limited.
Very. The only thing they always have are pork. That's the only meat. Once in a while beef will come up. It's like, everybody buy the beef, buy the beef. But pork and beans, red beans, are always available. That's about it. So
What is their need more now than, say, 10 years ago? They seem more desperate now.
Variety.
Yeah.
Variety. 10 years ago, now this was up at that store in Punta Brava. We went in this store and it was weird. There was a shelf, I remember this, that had about 200 pairs of Levi jeans sitting on there in all different sizes. There was a shelf that had not flip-flops, but sandals of some kind. and there was a shelf of dolls for girls, well, for children, sorry, don't be sexist. There was a toy dolls that were all exactly the same. They weren't Barbies, but they were cute little dolls. And maybe 2 towels. And that's what was in the store that day. They don't even have that much variety anymore. They just don't have, they need everything and they can't get anything, if that makes sense. They're being,
Their government has a lot to do with it.
it's a lot that the government's afraid of losing its own power, which it's gonna eventually. But until it gets there, the people are suffering.
So you can't put together a box of things?
We cannot mail to them, no. I can't send them a letter.
Oh, really?
They got internet about 5 years ago, and that was the first time that I had spoken to them since I had been there. And they on the internet, now I can't email them directly, but they have, if you have the internet, you can get on any site. They can get on Facebook now. And they found me on Facebook, and I got this message saying, you've been contacted by Luis Rafael Atares Caballo, that's his full name. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's one of these spam people. You get all these. And then I thought, Rafael, no, wait a minute. So I pulled up the picture, and there's my church. I'm like, oh my goodness. And I've been talking to him ever since. And last year, their phone, if any of you want to help a different way, I've paid for their phones for 10 years. That's the only reason they have phones. But let me tell you a story about Raphaeline, since I have a little time left. Raphaeline fell in love and got married to Maris Ladies. She goes by Ladies. And they were very happy. And then she got pregnant and had this beautiful baby girl, Karen, Keren. So you have a namesake down there. But anyway, Raphaeline did not want his daughter raised in Cuba. Now his mother, Noemi, because of her parents, has dual citizenship in Spain. She's actually a citizen of Spain. Therefore, her children, Rafael and Gertrudis, can have dual citizenship in Spain. So when Karen was born, Rafael went through the paperwork to get the dual citizenship and became a Spain citizen. He then took his family and moved to Mexico. This was about 5 years ago. Which means Karen wouldn't get to see her grandparents, and the grandparents wouldn't get to see Karen, but he feels that strongly about it. So they lived in Mexico for 3 years, and long enough for the Spanish citizen to become a Mexican citizen. So now he's a Mexican citizen, which is evidently easier to get into the United States than Spain, which that part I don't get. But anyway, Raphaeline is determined to do things right. So he found out all the paperwork that it takes for a Mexican citizen to become an American citizen. He put in the paperwork, he found a job in Miami, and he left his daughter and his wife in Mexico, and he moved to Miami 3 years ago. Now Karen was 2 years old. Maybe that was 7 years ago. Anyway, she was a little girl. He moved to Miami. Now Ladies is a Cuban citizen. She's not a Spanish citizen. So she couldn't go as soon as he could. So it was 2 years before Ladies and Karen were able to see Raphaeline again. About 2 months ago, June, how long was that? 4 months ago? Wow. Time flies, doesn't it? This past June, all the paperwork was done, all the fees were paid, everything was right, and Ladies moved to Miami. So after 2 years, they were together again, and after almost 6 years, their family is now in the United States. Now he's on a green card, he's not a citizen yet, but he's living legally in Miami, he's working, And once he becomes a citizen, that his family can be citizens, then he can sponsor other Cubans to come to the United States. His mother could have moved with them. The father, as a Cuban citizen, could have gone to Mexico. He can't come to America, but he can go to Mexico. They refused to go because God put them in the Church of Butao, and that's where their ministry is, and they will not leave the ministry. So they've not held Karen in like 6 years. I don't know how long it will be before they do. Noemi has a lot more freedom to come and go than Raphael because of her Spanish connection. But, so if you ever hear me talking about Raphaeline and Karen and Latus, that's the son of the family, and he got the daughter out and is raising her as an American. So a little bit of trivia. I have no idea if I answered your question.
Oh, you did, you did.
Okay.
I was thinking you could, somebody told me you had to go through Canada, and I thought, I imagine, well, you just
Yeah.
pick out what you want and pay for it with Canadian money and it gets shipped, but you
You
don't.
can't ship from the United States to Canada.
Well, I thought
Cuba.
it went
Cuba,
from
sorry.
Canada to Cuba.
That you can do.
And,
So if you want to drive up there and mail it at that post office from Canada, you can.
yeah.
It's only a 12-hour drive.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Not if you're in the back of that blue truck.
That would take a few days.
Boy, tell me about it.
How many Cubans can you put on the truck? One more.
I'm assuming their prominent church is Catholic. Like, is there a lot of
Great
implication
question.
there?
Great question.
I wonder if they have to struggle just as Christians because they're Protestant.
The Catholic Church in Cuba is not like the Catholic Church here. Cuba is a Caribbean island, and the natives before the Europeans came were into voodoo, and I don't say that kiddingly, that's literally what they're into. And the Catholic Church was adopted by very strong believers in that. And actually part of our training when we were being trained on how to go to Cuba and live to come back,
Yeah.
I say that kiddingly, but
Yeah.
yeah. You do not mess with any Catholics. You don't go into
Yeah.
the church, you don't look in the church. If you see people that seem to be in a religious group or celebration or something, unless you know them, you just,
Yeah.
it is scary. They literally still practice a lot of the,
I wondered if
What you
that
see
was
on TV.
really, supported by the government too, so that the Methodists are not.
the government there would prefer there not be any churches.
Oh,
There is no God. We're just here till we die and then we die. So, yeah. One time during the week, this is when Fidel was still around. He was pretty sick, but he was around. Fidel was going to do a talk. And everybody had to stop everything they were doing everywhere. That is the only time in the entire week I was there that the television was on. And they have a television so that when Fidel wants to speak, you turn it on and you listen. And during the time that he was speaking, there were cars with soldiers going up and down the town. This little tiny town of Guatao, this little, not even paved road. When the car went by, Mario told me what it was, and I was like, you're kidding. So when Fidel speaks, you listen. Now, I don't know if it's still like that with his brother, but it was a communist country. When I was in Havana, Raphael was on this side, Raphaeline was on this side, and they said, do not talk. Because here I am, this cute, fat, blonde-haired, blue-eyed girl. Gee, do you think she's native Cuban? So they were afraid someone would find out that I'm American, and that would have been an issue. Now, I had all my papers, and I carried them with me all the time, but still, they just preferred, don't speak. If you want to say anything, tell Mario, and he'll say it. So, and yes, there were soldiers with guns all around Havana, on every corner. Now, that was 10 years ago. It's been 10 years, but it was interesting. Any other questions? Thank you for your continued support,
Yes, thank you.
and thank you for coming tonight. I appreciate it. And I'm done, unless someone else
Thank
has
you.
something. Cut out this part.
When you describe the coffee, now I know why they jump around and sing and dance.
Good point, I never made that connection.
Like 10 hits of speed. They do that turkey too or something.
Oh, you are, okay.
Patsy,
Okay.
how do I turn this off?
Oh, hit the record button on the right,
Linda said you knew.
top right. No, side top right.
Well, that's okay.